Hello and welcome back to the Seth and Gentry show. I am Seth Emerson, the Seth part of the Gentry and Seth show. This is
Gentry, Estes, Dogs 24/7.
Yeah, I forgot to say I'm with the Macon Telegraph, Columbus Ledger Enquirer, and basically whoever else will throw me a buck. Gentry, we've got about 2 weeks of practice, let's say, until Georgia takes the field against Clemson. Not sure if anybody heard. They're playing Clemson to start the season. What are you looking at? What's on your mind here as we get going?
Who's practicing and who isn't? Who's in a green jersey and who isn't? I think right now for this team, they've got to get healthy in the defensive backfield and they need to get healthy quick. I think cornerback's probably okay right now, but safety is becoming a real point of concern.
Strong safety, especially. I think Trey Matthews, I'd be concerned if Trey wasn't out there next week. And he's been out there for a couple weeks. He's just been limited. But, is he going to be limited in terms of his hitting or anything because of this?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, this isn't the kind of team you wanted to be playing anyway. With what they're having to replace in the secondary and everything Clemson's able to do, throwing the ball. And, to have these guys missing time, it hurts. Even for a guy like Trey, who enrolled early, they know what he can do. He's not, his starting spot's not in jeopardy, but it's not good right now. They need to get these guys back on the field. They're already, I think, going to accelerate the process a little bit just to get them ready for this game. And gosh, you'd sure like to have Josh Harvey-Clemens out there as well.
Yeah, they cannot get him out there unless they decide at the last second that he doesn't need to be suspended one game. We can rehash that.
Just to be clear, we got no reason to think that's happening.
Not even no reason. It's not happening. We're not going to have a redux of the Sanders-Cummings. Is he coming off suspension for
when you bring it up, people go, well.
No, it's not happening. It's not happening. We'll talk about Josh Harvey-Clemens and the importance, what he would have done against Clemson if they don't beat Clemson. Otherwise, what can you say at this point? But at cornerback, I think Damian Swan is going to spend a lot of time at that nickelback spot that Josh Harvey-Clemens would have played. Either way, they're going to play 3 cornerbacks and a lot of times 4 cornerbacks. So with Sheldon Dawson coming in, and people are kind of overlooking the fact that Sheldon Dawson is a sophomore who didn't really play significantly last year. He was a backup to Sanders Cummings and Brandon Smith and Damian Swan. And then you've got Shaq Wiggins and Brendan Langley. So shouldn't you be worried about that secondary to begin with? And now you add on to it injuries in the preseason that affect cohesion and everything, and now you say, well, I think you're looking at a situation where the defensive line is going to have to be really stout, or the offense is going to have to put up the 50 points, or both.
I'll just say whatever the over-under is on this game, I'd take the over.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of points scored by both teams.
You and I have said all along, I've said this a lot too, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that too many people, I think, are raising the expectations a bit too high for the defense. This is still a very young defense. This is still a defense that does not have a Jarvis Jones or an Alec Ogletree.
I think it's about matchups. You have a team that can hurt you through the air in this first game. I think Georgia's going to be a little better against the run this year. I think they're going to be
because the substituting. You buy into the whole substituting thing is going to make up for the fact that you don't have John Jacobs, Kwame Gathers.
I do.
Cornelius Washington.
And I think there were things they did last year to get around the fact they weren't substituting a lot that they don't have to do this year. You don't have to have a 350-pound defensive end this year.
Yeah.
But I think we'll see against South Carolina and later on in the schedule. But right now the focus is Clemson, and this is a team that can throw the ball over the place.
Did we talk last week about the whole substituting last year thing and why they didn't do that? Anybody out there tell us? Oh, wait, this isn't. I guess they can't tell us yet. The bottom line is that last year they did not play guys like Ray Drew and Sterling Bailey and Mike Thornton early in the year. And thus, late in the season, when that defensive line started to wear down, they did not have confidence in Ray Drew and Sterling Bailey and Mike Thornton to play them. And John Taylor was redshirting anyway. This year, just out of necessity, because the only guy that is proven on that line is Garrison Smith, by necessity, they're going to play 6, 7. I was actually adding it up the other day. I'm not sure, out of 8 guys, I'm not sure who's not playing unless Chris Mays is out or John Atkins isn't playing. So I think they might go 8 deep against Clemson for all we know.
60.
6. Well, then we could go over who are the.
I don't think Atkins will be in that rotation. But
he's the one I would leave out. Yeah, and then Mays, you don't know how the concussions affected him at this point.
But the versatility of it is you can play guys at different spots.
But Gentry, it gets back to the schedule works against this defense. This defense, cohesion-wise, young guys getting experience, this defense should be better at the end of the year. Yet, potentially, your two toughest games, especially from a matchup standpoint, are the first two. They would much rather take the secondary and the defensive line experience-wise as they're going to be and play Clemson week 12 or even week 5 than this week or 2 weeks from now. It's all right. So then let's flip it over to the offense. We've come into this season expecting that Georgia's offense is, what can you expect as far as a drop-off? We didn't expect a drop-off in defense last year, and there was. Have you seen anything in the preseason to curtail the idea that this is going to be, again, a prolific, high-scoring offense?
No, I mean, probably not. I think that, I mean, they've had their injuries here and there, but to this point, nothing that would really concern you. And I think that, you've got so much stability there with Aaron Murray being a 4-year starter and proven running backs, just real deep at receiver. And I think that...
Better, by the way, Michael Bennett, he's healthy. They didn't have him the last... what game was South Carolina? Basically, the last half of
I think that was
last year.
I think that was an underrated aspect
they did not,
last year.
They were undefeated with Michael Bennett on the field last year, by the way, because he went out right before the South Carolina game. He would not have made a difference in that game. Maybe he would have helped against Alabama.
I think
they didn't have Marlon Brown against Alabama.
Alabama had an inexperienced guy covering the slot in that game, and I think they could have had trouble with Bennett.
And you and I are out there at practice. You're around this team. They gush over Todd Gurley. There's no. They love the guy's work ethic. Aaron Murray's just well established. He was here over the summer. Pretty much the whole time organizing workouts. I still get back to the barring injuries, the thing that would bring this offense down would be the O-line. The question is the fact they're all experienced, and now you throw Colton Houston in the mix. They could be consistent for 95% of the plays, but if that other 5% you're giving up some drive-killing sacks, then that becomes an issue. And I'm not sure you're going to any concerns about that are going to be allayed until you get out there and you're actually playing games and you're playing well on the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something you'll learn probably in the second week, not the first one.
You don't buy too much into Clemson's D-line? We haven't heard much about Clemson's D-line or defense at all. Everything we hear about is Taj Boyd and Sammy Watkins and who knows, maybe they'll surprise you. But yeah, right now you're kind of looking at the defense, aren't you, and saying, can the defense keep the offense in the game and allow the offense to potentially run away?
For the offense, don't turn the ball over. Don't make obvious mistakes. I don't think they will.
Yeah.
I think they're very experienced on that side of the ball. I think Georgia's offense is going to be a handful for whoever they play.
All right, we're getting into breaking down Clemson. There will be a Seth and Gentry, or as he calls it, the Gentry and Seth show next week. But we've got one more week of practice here. Give me bullet point 2 or 3 things you're watching the most to see you get kind of settled or resolved or whatever this week.
Well, I think the offensive line is still up in the air just a little bit. They seem to want Colton Houston. To me, it looks to me like they want him to be that sixth man, a guy who can play any one of 4 spots other than
because he's gone to the left tackle,
right?
Which Theus has not.
Right, and again, you also don't know about Chris Burnett. He's still coming in and out, and I do think Burnett he'll play against Clemson, but he won't play the whole game. And I think when that happens, when he comes out, right now it looks like they're going to put Colton Houston at right tackle and Theus at right guard.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a new position for Theus. He really hasn't played that very much, so, how will that go?
At the one, I keep hearing from fans if Theus hasn't locked down that right tackle spot, does that mean he's overrated? Or, who knows? It may mean that, but they're also not looking at someone else at right guard, apparently. That's some confidence in Theus in terms of putting him at right guard rather than
Well, I think
Grant Pike.
Tackle is a more specialized position, meaning it's tougher to play it. Mm-hmm. I think there's some confidence there that you can just kind of put someone in a guard and roll with that. But I do think Colton Houston is in the mix. I think Watts Dancer's in the mix. I think these are guys they're going to want to get into the game somehow.
What were the other things you were looking at?
Well, obviously on defense, you need to get your guys back in the secondary. I think as it stands right now, we don't really have a good idea how that's going to look. I mean, you say Swan's going to be the star, and that would make a lot of sense because he played it last year.
The star is the nickelback. Yeah.
But we've seen nothing out there that would suggest it's going to be him. I mean, it might be, and it would certainly make the most sense. But it could be Connor Norman. It could be Brendan Langley. They could choose to do a lot of things with that position, and I think just right now they don't know. so it's hard to have a good gauge of exactly what they're going to do because they just haven't had the players out there to do it yet. And that's a real concern. I think otherwise on that defense, I think the D-line, you kind of know what they're going to do. The starters won't matter as much there. They're going to rotate a lot. And, inside linebacker, I think you're set with Herrera and Ramik Wilson, but you still don't have a lot of depth there.
Well, I would say it's a three-headed monster at that point.
Right.
Reggie Carter is going to come in at both spots. It's a question of...
And you don't know who's after him. And they kind of said Tim Kimbrough was a little ahead, and he's been hurt too. So.
All right, we're at 10 and a half minutes. Let's keep this at 12 minutes. I'll make this lightning round. I'll give you 3 names and give me a quick impression whether it's a preseason sensation or he's going to be a real factor in the season. Leonard Floyd.
I think he'll play. I think he's too good not to. One thing that I noticed out at practice, there was a drill where all the outside linebackers were together, and Leonard was off on the side with Christian Robinson, going over coverages just with Christian Robinson.
Right. Not because he's going to play inside linebacker, but because Christian.
Because they're getting him ready to play.
Right.
And I think he's going to be too good not to
Second
play.
name, Brendan Douglas.
You got to find a place to put him. He hasn't played fullback much at all this preseason, so they're going to leave him at tailback. And I know everyone wants to talk about that third spot and J.J. Green and Brendan Douglas or even A.J. Thurman. But look, let's be honest. If the top two guys stay healthy, it ain't going to matter.
Right.
It's really not. I mean,
they're saying they're going to play all 3 of those freshman tailbacks, though. So it sounds like they're putting them on special teams or
the
something.
third guy will play as much as Ken Malcolm did last year.
Yeah.
That was enough to lead him to transfer.
Last lightning round name. You give me a lightning round name. Who else have you? I'm sorry.
Bryce Ramsey.
Bryce Ramsey. He's not going to play. I will say it's encouraging for the team's future that he has been a factor for that number 3 spot. He was buried on that depth chart.
I tell you, if you want to say something that surprised me about this preseason, that has surprised me. I did not think Bryce Ramsey would be the number 3 quarterback.
But he will not play unless there's injuries. And not only Aaron Murray, but Hudson Mason, in my mind, would have to get hurt, and then they would have to decide Bryce Ramsey's the guy.
You know your offense is good when all the discussions have to do with positions that may not see the field much at all anyway.
Well, we're going way over, but people love talking about quarterbacks. We're seeing all these. Nick Marshall just got the quarterback job at Auburn. They don't know what's going on there next year. Whereas Georgia, Aaron Murray's about to finish his 4th year as a starter. You know who's going to be the starter next year, and you're almost in position. You're going to know who it's going to be in 2015. All right, that's for the Gentry and Seth show in 2015. Bryce Ramsey or Jacob Park. See you later.